People ask me lately how to make an apple stone. We use them in some of our workouts here. So I'm going to go through real quick on how to do that. First things first, there's a couple different ways to make them, to make your molds. The first one being you find about the right size rubber ball that you want, cover it up with plaster of Paris, and pop the ball, pull the ball out, and then fill your concrete into the plaster of Paris mold. That way's a little bit cheaper than the way that I'm going to go over, but it's not, in my opinion, worth the hassle. I've done it both ways. This way is far superior, a little bit more expensive to initially start out, but the molds last forever. So the way that I'm going to talk about is using molds from Slater's Hardware. You buy these online. Their website's www.slatershardware.com. One of these molds is about $100 and you can use it multiple times. I've heard of 50 stones being made out of the same mold before it started to break down or had any problems with it. So that's by far the cheapest route to go. So the first thing you want to do after you get your mold, I've already wiped the inside of them out a little bit. They just had some styrofoam in them from the packing. You're going to need some silicone spray, some duct tape, and something to put the molds into. I'm going to make two different size molds. This one's going to make about a 100-pound stone. This one's going to make a roughly 155-pound stone. So the bigger one is going to go in these two tires right here. The smaller one is going to go in the orange bucket, and that's just something to kind of help hold the shape of it and keep the mold off of the ground. So first thing you're going to want to do, shake up your silicone spray and just spray the inside of the mold with the silicone spray. And all this does is makes it a little bit easier to get the mold off of the cement once the cement has cured. So you'll see the molds from Slater's have these little black lines on them. If you line up those two lines, it will center the mold, so it's the seam inside is nice and tight. If you look inside it, you can see the seam is nice and tight, put right together. So the next thing you're going to do once you get the inside of it sprayed down and get the mold stuck together, just take your duct tape, and I like to use a piece of duct tape that's long enough to go wrap all the way around the mold this way. I think it's easier to get the mold tight that way. You'll see some people just tear off strips that'll go this way, and when you start to press in on the side of the mold, it'll actually break it apart, and it turns out to be a huge pain in the butt. So I'll get a piece about that long to start out with. And then press it down right over the top center of the mold, wrap it around the bottom. Make sure it's on there nice and good, getting good contact all the way around. Rotate it. I tend to overdo things, so I'm probably going to put a little bit more duct tape on here than you actually need to do if you're going to do one of these yourself, but it's better to have too much and not have it fall apart than it would be to not have enough on there and end up having your mold come apart on you in the middle of putting things together.
Dad, you should do one over this way.
That's going to be the next thing that I do, Sammy.
Yeah, and then it will look like a star.
So the big thing with this is you just want to get equal coverage with the tape all the way around so that there's no real weak spots. The odds of the concrete actually breaking one of these molds are pretty slim, breaking it apart, but this will keep that from happening. So once you get it put together this way, then you're going to want to flip it on your side, or flip it on its side, and you're going to put a strip of tape all the way around the seam as well, because this is where the actual seam of the mold is. So you want to make sure that you don't get a bunch of that you don't have any air there where the concrete can escape. cause problems. You want to keep everything, all the moisture, all the concrete, everything inside this mold. So I put one strip around it this way, actually on the on this retainer ring. I'll put a piece on either half of that, just so that I get good, just so that it sticks well to it. And then once I've got the ring completely covered up, I'll go ahead and come over the top of it and get the upper edge of where the tape is at, again, just to make sure I get that good seal over it. You can never have, really you could never have too much duct tape on one of these molds. It'll be a little bit more to take it apart after we're done, but not a big deal at all. So I've got that half done. Now I'm going to go ahead and put some on the bottom half. And again, this is just going to keep all the water in it so that it doesn't leak out and make a big mess. And the water staying in the concrete a little bit longer is going to help it cure a little bit better as well. So you'll have a tougher, harder to break stone. Okay, so this one's all ready to go. It's all taped up. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the bucket right now, and you want to try and get it as centered in there as you can. I'll probably have to adjust it a little bit for level as I start getting it filled up, but for now that'll be plenty good. Now this next one that I do, I'm going to put this styrofoam ball in the middle of it, and the idea behind having the styrofoam ball in the middle of it is that styrofoam obviously weighs less than concrete does, so this is going to reduce the weight of the actual stone itself. And this one is an 8-inch ball, so it's going to reduce the weight by about 15 or 20 pounds. Ones that I've used with this size ball in the past have come out to about 155 pounds. And this mold, when I've made it without putting anything in the center of it, it'll make a 175 pound stone. So the way to get this ball in the center of the stone, I've done it in the past where I put rods through here, so it had 4 rods sticking out and centered it in the mold that way. And it was kind of a pain to get the thing to stay because the styrofoam wants to float once you start getting concrete in it, and it'll pick it up a little bit, so it's not going to get right in the center, and then sometimes it'll rotate and one of those rods will start poking out the top, and it's a pain. So I talked to Steve at Slater's Hardware, and he said that this is the way they've been doing it lately, and it works really good. So I've drilled a little hole right in the bottom of the mold, big enough to pass this string through. I put a little piece of black tape on the end of the string just to make it fit through the hole a little bit easier.
I see it out the hole.
Hey Sam, watch out buddy. Move out of the way please.
And then once you get the string in here,
thank you.
You're going to want to hold this thing up and suspend it to where that ball is about half in and half out of the mold. So that looks about right there. And I have not done this way before, so this is going to be my first time giving this a shot.
And are you going to tape your butt?
So I'm going to tape it right here just to make sure I've got it still in the right spot, and then I'll go ahead and tie a knot in the bottom of it. And that looks pretty good to me.
Tell me a little bit about where you get the styrofoam balls.
You can get the styrofoam balls from Slater's Hardware. Is probably the best place because they're not made for this, obviously. I mean, they use them for something else, but the balls that they've got are a little bit denser foam than this one is. But I actually bought this one at a craft store at Walmart in the craft section. And it's for all intents and purposes, it's going to work probably just as good as the one from Slater's. But the ones from Slater's already have a hole drilled through the middle of them, and they've got some reinforcing bars stuck through them too. That's going to just help make the mold a little bit better. So there you go. This thing's suspended right in the center of the mold, so it's going to do this as I start to pour the concrete into it, and it'll hopefully stay right centered in the middle of the mold and take off the extra weight. So you need to get some silicone on the inside of this thing as well. And this stuff is really slick, so try not to get it if you're doing this in your garage or in your gym. Try not to get it all over the place because you'll have an accident. This is like that Chevy Chase scene from Christmas Vacation where he says it's 10,000 times slicker than normal cooking grease. This stuff is slick. Okay, so this mold's a little bit older, but you can still see it still has this black line on it on this half, and then there's another black line on this half. So you want to try and line those up. Again, that's just going to help the thing seal itself a little bit better. And this mold, I have made quite a few stones with this mold. And it's still holding together. I actually borrowed it from another guy that works out at our gym, and he's made quite a few stones with it. I've made quite a few stones with it. I think I've made at least 5 stones with it, and it still is holding up really well. I noticed it had a little bit thinner walls on it than the newer mold does, so it's starting to break down a little bit, but like I say, they last forever.
Can you stop now?
What's that? Yeah,